The world is awful. We're all glued to our phone screens, war is rampant, AI is taking over, and we need an escape. So anyway, check out this film about the West setting free an AI into a virtual world where it steals everyone's information and nearly brings about the end of humanity as we know it. It's also a cute little love story, so that's exciting as well. So welcome, my internet friends, my lovely goblins, the world ghouls, is awful. And I'm glued to our phone screen. Boom. Sorry, the stream was playing in the background. But welcome, my internet fiends, my lovely goblins, ghouls, and all you other fools, my mainframe motherfuckers. Welcome to One with the Films, your metaverse with the best of verse. Don't worry about the rhyme, it works in time. Well, as you know, when the K's away, the NAFs will play. I'm your charismatic Hispanic, and I can't spell AI. Or, well, I suppose I can, so long as it includes me, myself, and I. So I is NAF, and if I had a penny for every time we covered a film where AI is the villain, I'd say I probably need a couple more pennies, because 2 isn't all that much. But joining me today is one of our other DiadCon Connects, our other friend who makes up for my lack of facial hair, and is also into the whole nerddom sphere, someone with passion, dope passion, taste for days. It's Sleepy Savior, also known as Ren. Say hey, Ren.
Howdy.
Kay is obviously away this week, but he's with us in spirit. He put together this beautiful little intro for us, so thank you, Kay. I'm glad that you're here with us in spirit. So it's a reminder to everyone listening as well that you can find One with the Films on all your favorite podcasting platforms of choice, as well as live and on demand right here. So if you're in the live chat, please feel free to join in the conversation. We always love to hear from you, and if you're listening on demand, then don't worry, we love you still, just slightly less. But Ren, you're going to be helping me out with some of the kind of co-hosting today. You're going to be guest and co-host at the same time. So I was wondering, do you want to give us a little bit of insight around what we're actually doing here today?
Yes. So we're doing the weekly watch list.
We sure are.
The weekly watch list is what happens when a bunch of friends with unique and wonderful taste in films have tried too hard for too long to finally share and discuss their favorite films with one another. If you've been around for a while, you already know the shtick. However, for the uninitiated, the idea is that for every episode, at least one person is watching the chosen film for the first time. It's all about having a space for creators to share the art that matters most to them and give them a platform to show us all why. So if you like listening to a bunch of nerds geek out and force each other to watch and discuss their favorite films for the very first time, feel free to follow or subscribe, send us to your friends, and if you like, you can activate notifications so you never miss a new episode. And of course, we're on all your favorite socials too. Links are in the description below.
Hell yeah. So, Ren, let me put it to you nice and easy. Okay, what is a brilliant film that not enough people have seen?
Oh, Summer Wars.
Summer Wars. So this is a film that came out in 2009, directed by Mamoru Hasoda. I may have stuffed up that name. I think that's right, yeah?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, well, what would you say is your elevator pitch for this film? Could you tell me in one sentence why you chose this film to share with us? Or me, I should say.
There's a virus on the internet, and only math and card games can save us.
That's a pretty good elevator pitch, and very indicative of what the film is. And I would love to know, what I'll do is I'll give you a bit of insight for myself as well, because I had no idea this film existed. And I remember, I think this is one of the episodes I booked in a hot tub in DiadCon.
Yes.
I feel like that's how that went down. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And I remember just being one going, I've got a really weird film I'm going to show you guys. And then it went to, oops, I made you watch Robot Dreams, so you're going to ruin my life. And then I think it came back to Summer Wars. Yeah, I think that's about how it went.
Yeah, I was originally going to make you watch Wolf Children, which is heartbreaking and fantastic.
By
but
the same
then
director,
I realized, no, that is by Shinkai.
Yep.
I believe. But then I remembered that the last time I watched Wolf Children, I was 21 and
oh no, it is
single
written
with no
and
kids.
directed by Hosoda.
Oh, it is. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, I realized that the last time I watched that was about 8 years before I had kids, and I don't think I could handle that movie.
Oh no. Okay, so what you're saying is I should watch that before I have kids.
Yes.
Okay, I'm scared. But okay, cool. Yeah, so like I hadn't heard of this film outside of your recommendation, and I had a really great time with this. It was heaps of fun, but yeah, I had no concept of what it was or what I was getting into. We were talking just pre-stream a little bit how when I was watching it and trying to think of my like cinema a la carte, like things, Your Name and stuff come up, and I thought that potentially it was the same director, but no, they're different people. You have Shinkai and you have Hosoda, but they do have some similar styles visually, it seems, and I love that vibe. But yeah, like I knew like nothing going into this film. I had no idea what to expect. When it was Summer Wars, I thought, and it being an anime film as well, I thought that it was probably going to be something more akin to like Jujutsu Kaisen, which we did like last week, or just something around like a war. And
Yeah.
that's not necessarily the biggest aspect of this film. There's so many other parts that kind of stand out that are really cool as well. So I was delightfully surprised by what I got to experience here, because I had no idea what I was getting into. But for yourself, this is one you obviously brought to us. How did you come to find this film originally?
So I found this film because of a GIF on Tumblr.
Okay.
And it was just one of the fight scenes, the like jujitsu fight between Love Machine and Kazuma.
Yeah.
And immediately I looked at it and thought, this looks like the same animation as the Digimon movie, which is how I found out that it was created by the same person who made that part of the Digimon movie, and that it is based on the same story.
Wow. Yeah. I actually like I remember growing up and watching Digimon. So like here in Australia they had a TV show in the morning called Cheese TV, and they would do like a bunch of basically animations leading into school time. They had what would it play? It was 7 a.m., 7:30 and 8. Yeah, it was like that. Actually, there was a 6:30 as well sometimes, but they'll basically run like 3 or 4 episodes of like anime, and they would have Pokemon, Digimon, Dragon Ball Z playing, and we would get up early to watch that. And Digimon was part of that, but Digimon's probably the one I watched the least. Like, we were more Pokemon kids in my house until my parents decided Pokemons were demons and like had us physically exorcise the demons from our house with fire.
No.
So we have lots of great non-traumatic memories associated with Pokemon for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how many times would you say you've seen this film?
I honestly don't know if I can count it.
Okay, that many.
Yeah, this is one of those movies that I have like gone through a binge at multiple points where I will watch it on like repeat just as background noise for like days.
I love it. And watching it generally in the English dub, right?
Yeah, I have not watched it in, I think I may have watched it in Japanese once, but I don't remember it, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. It's interesting that because I feel like generally when people have like anime films that they adore, there's a lot of feelings around dubs versus subs. People generally lean in towards like the sub, what's the word? Like supremacy, I suppose, And lately I've been trying to get back into anime the last week. Cal broke me. I have watched 2 seasons of Demon Slayer in the last like 3 or 4 days. I finished the Hashira training arc last night, which was dope. But yeah, Jujutsu Kaisen, and that has been my excitement. But I find that like I work in a very, what's the word? Like I have to work with people, okay? And like being Tizumi, it's exhausting. And what I found is that like getting home and then trying to binge or watch a few episodes of anime and read subtitles, it actually exhausts me, and I just sleep. I fall asleep. And so English dubs have been my saving grace lately to watch a little bit more anime, which, yeah, I had to kind of fight myself internally on because I feel like I had that internal, what's the word? Like hatred of the English dubs. Like,
yeah,
I'm a failure. I'm not a real anime fan. I'm not watching them in the original language. No. And so I have to fight that a little bit every time I put it on. And I'm like, no, you'll fall asleep. You can't stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning watching stuff in Japanese. You're a sleepy baby.
Yeah, I don't have much of a preference. I definitely prefer English dubs just for like the convenience of not having to read and pay full
Yeah,
attention the whole time.
yeah,
But then there's also shows like Bakemonogatari that because they're so based on wordplay, they can't be translated to
okay,
English
yeah.
to for a dub. And because of that, I'm like 5 series behind because I just have not had the energy to watch
Mhm.
72 episodes in Japanese.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's hard. It's hard. Yeah, and with this film in particular, do you find that this is one that you generally are, what's the word? I like recommending to people quite often. Like this is your, like we said, bring a film that's you, yeah, that matters and is special to you, and this is what you chose. So is this your go to for everyone?
I it's definitely one of them. It's one that I think for like anime, it appeals to everyone. It
Mhm.
has like a little bit of everything, and it has a good like entry point for people that aren't into anime because it is really cool, but it doesn't just have like a bunch of the tropes that turn people away from anime.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It definitely is an easy watch. But yeah, well, look, if we're listening, guys, get ready because we're going to do a bit of a deep dive into the film shortly. But I've got some fun facts that I've put together here as well, just from what I could find. So the film was directed by Mamoru Hasoda, and the film seemingly swept the Tokyo Anime Awards in 2010, winning Best Animation, Director, Notable Entry, Original Story, Screenplay, Art Direction, and Character Design. It features a script by both Hosoda and Satoko Okudera, who they're a writing pair, it seems, on most of their films. Like they usually it's story by Hosoda and screenplay by Okudera. But the film had a budget of approximately 11.5 million and managed to gross 18.4 million during its worldwide box office run. There were 500 pages of storyboards put together for this film, which Hosoda completed at Denny's, working for up to 16 hours. I read this on IMDb, and it was unclear if like he was working as like an employee there and doing the storyboards at the same time, or if he was just sitting in a Denny's for 16 hours, like frantically drawing on a storyboard.
Yeah, I think he was just like hanging out there all
Yeah.
day doing I guess, the equivalent to Starbucks here.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like the second highest thing on my what's the word on my Denny's bucket list. You know, second is draw 500 pages of storyboards. First is a sloppy syrupy foot job. So, the film features quite a few fantastic set pieces animated within the virtual world of Oz and features a comprehensive English dub alongside the original Japanese version. It features voice work from, I'm going to stuff up all of these names, but Ryunosuke Kamiki and Nami Sakuraba, as well as Mitsuki Tanimura in the Japanese version. And then it has Michael Sinterniklas, Brina Valencia, and then Maxi Whitehead in the English dub. The film currently has a 7.4 out of 10 on IMDb and a 3.8 out of 5 on Letterboxd, and is seemingly one of 3 films that make up like an unofficial thematic trilogy of sorts in Hosoda's filmography. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that, Ren?
Yeah, a couple things. One of them is that the English dub's director is also the voice of Cousin Shota,
Okay.
and in the Japanese dub, I believe it's one of the ants is the Japanese dub's director.
Okay, cool. They cast themselves. That's awesome. The cousin was one of the funniest things. I was just like, bro, you're being a little sus, like real
Yeah.
sus as a cousin. Yeah, like, and it's like Theo Von says, you know, you got your cousins, and then you got your kissing cousins. It seems he wanted to be a kissing cousin for sure. Yeah, but it's wild that when we do like anime films in particular, there seems to be less information about them available to put like fun facts together. So it usually is like a word of mouth or like a troll through Reddit to find things that are of like interest, you know?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with this movie is Mamoru Hosoda has made this movie 3 times now because the Digimon movie part that he made is a very similar story, and then there's Summer Wars, and then he recently came out with Bell, which is again a very similar story.
Yeah. It seems like he really likes this idea. So it's like the George Lucas of anime. And it's like, I want to perfect it. It's poetry. It rhymes. Okay, come on.
Yeah,
Just waiting for that clip of Hosoda being like, I may have gone too far in a couple of places. That's what we're missing. Yeah, well, look, a little bit of a spoiler alert. So before we go any further, all these conversations aren't spoiler free. We're not necessarily doing a play by play, but we're talking about the film with the expectation that you've already seen it. It's always cool to go and watch the film and then check back later. But even if you haven't seen the film, chances are we'll be the ones to convince you to finally watch it and take that leap. So if you want to know what film to watch in advance so you can be prepared for next week's episode, links are in the description for all socials, so you can check us out there. And if you listen all the way to the end of today's episode, then we'll also be revealing our next film and guest right here. All right, so let's get right into it. Now, firstly, the film features throughout almost its entire runtime this this theme of acceptance, right? Of kind of like self and other things that are happening around us. Yeah, like you do have a few moments in the film that are, and again, like spoilers. Yeah, like there are some moments in the film that are tragic. Yeah, like the premise of this is, hey, I don't want my grandma to die, so can you come and pretend to be my boyfriend? Because I said that she can't die until she meets like my boyfriend, so she has to like stay alive on like my husband or whatever. So she's like, this is the inciting incident. We have like a sick grandma. So the film's about math and playing cards. Okay, so put 2 and 2 together, do some math in your head around where this is going. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And there's a lot of characters in it whose arc is just that they are seeking acceptance in some way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that like each person has it to some extent, as you said, even down to the was it the uncle that's been kind of like, you know, pushed away from the family and not really a part of it anymore, and he comes back, and it's like towards the end of the film where the main girl calls him and she's like, you know, hey, like this is happening, but like I know that you knew it was her birthday. You didn't just forget her birthday. Like you came here for this. Those moments really hit hard.
Yeah, and when he the part where he like he's trying to show the grandma the contract, and he's like, see, look at how much money we've made. We can be like the old days, and all of everything he did was just for her approval, and it just backfires completely.
Yeah, it's actually brutal. And it's funny because you know, he's not necessarily a villain in this story. Like he's villainized by the family. Yeah, like they go, you know, not one of us. There's even the moment where the grandma grabs the spear and is like, die like a man. I'm like, whoo, okay, badass grandma.
Yeah, I loved that, just how easily she wielded a weapon against him. And
reminds me of my grandma against Pokemon. Yeah, it's yeah, and as you said, like I think that every character has their kind of like arc of acceptance in that point, and you have that where they want the acceptance from her. You've got the family that are unable to accept her like passing in those moments as well. I think you've also got like the main kid's mum coming in being like, this is all a game, right? This is not that serious. It's like, ooh, the world might end. And if it doesn't, we're going to. So wild. But I do love how throughout the film, it just like it goes in so many directions I didn't expect, right? Particularly when we're setting up to take down this love machine, this AI entity, and you've got a family member that deals in supercomputers, and a family member that just brought a ship from the dock, just brought it in and put it in the lake we have there so that it can generate some kind of electricity and keep everything cool. And then, you know, we've got these ice blocks to keep the supercomputer cool. And I'm like, where is all this coming from? What? But
yeah, the uncle showing up with the military vehicle with the military internet satellite and listening to international classified radio signals.
Yeah, which like, what is it that you do in the military? Haha, it's classified. I'm like, there is war crimes happening here right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is wild. And then obviously we spend a lot of time in this virtual world as well, which is really cool. It's really interesting how like one thing that stood out to me is like the brightness of this world, the backgrounds being like really like white, you know? Again, you look at the poster we've got to like our left-hand side here, and it's, you know, green and beautiful and luscious. And that's juxtaposed with this, like, it's not that it's not colorful, but it is like, it does feel like a lot less colorful than the real world, even though you've got all these individual, like, like characters and critters and stuff. But it did stand out to me that I feel like Ralph Breaks the Internet rips this off like crazy.
Yeah, maybe.
Like down to like literally like viruses and then all these versions of him, and he becomes this amalgamation, this huge version of himself that I was like, Disney,
Yeah.
come on. It's like a much worse version of this because I thought this was really cool.
Yeah.
These really cool fight scenes that are in the film as well. Like visually,
Yes.
that was one of the things that stood out to me a lot. I think like visually, it's really stunning, and those were the things that like, you know, kind of tied it's like Your Name and things like that for me because those films are gorgeous to look at too, and it's a very similar style naturally. So yeah, but always when I'm watching anything animated, like I think we spoke about it last week on the episode, but like animated films, like that's my favorite medium. I love that you don't like things that necessarily happen by accident in animation. You know, like every blade of grass that's there was like drawn, and you know, it like matters. Somebody put effort into that to make it feel real.
Yeah.
That feels really special.
Everything's intentional.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I love the wicked design of all these characters. Like we said before, the film like swept the Tokyo Awards, the Tokyo Anime Awards. So like I get it because there's a lot happening here. Yeah, I saw on your like letterbox that you got this film rated 5 out of 5 stars too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about that. What makes this film like a 5 out of 5 for you?
I don't. It's just got a special place in my heart. It's also one of very few things. Like I'm very objective in my ratings. Like my favorite anime is Gurren Lagann. It's all-time favorite, absolute top tier. It's an 8 out of 10. So like this movie just like it doesn't have any flaws for me. Like the animation is consistent throughout the whole thing. The story doesn't lull at any point. It's just solidly perfect execution of what it was trying to do.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that too because I feel like there are these moments within the film that come as a surprise as well. Like, you know, him breaking the code and then being like, oh, you know, he's the enemy. Starting that, I was like, oh, okay, this is a really interesting direction for it to go. And then it's like, oh, wait, no, that's actually not what it was at all. You weren't even like, you got it wrong. Like, you're not even part of the group that got it right. It's just every person that replied got their account stolen. But you stuffed up. And I thought that was really funny that it's a typo at the end.
Yeah.
So that's like the most like neurodivergent thing. Like just everything is perfect. I made a typo because I got distracted at the last minute.
I love that he's also a little bit disappointed that he got it wrong.
Right? Yeah, it's like
congratulations, you're innocent. And he's like, what do you mean I got it wrong?
And there's moments towards the end of the film where he's doing like insane math, and everyone's just yelling at him like, "You can do it! You can do it!" I'm like, if that was me, I'd be like, "Everybody, shut the fuck up! Get out of the room! I can't hear myself think." And I love that when he realizes that it's too slow to do the math by hand, that he just starts looking at it and like doing it in his head. They're like, he's doing the maths in his head. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
That's how we do most of our maths these days. But I mean, obviously, naturally, it's really complex. But watching him just sit there and his nose is bleeding. And I think, again, like we were talking pre-stream, that I think it's really funny because there's that, what's the word? It's like that trope in anime. If we get a blood nose, people do things that are sexy. I think literally it's like, this character has a boner. That's why their nose is bleeding. And he's sitting there doing math and his nose is bleeding. And I'm like, is it that you're thinking too hard or are you enjoying this a lot? Which one is it? Which one is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I really love, like, one of my favorite themes in films is like people coming together to overcome, you know, great odds. Like when I watch a Spider-Man movie, if Spider-Man doesn't have New York coming together to help Spider-Man, it feels like it's missing them. You know, so that's like the Tom Holland films. Like I love them, but they don't hit as hard for me as like the Raimi and even the Andrew Garfield films to a certain extent. Because like, you know, there's those moments. Like I think Amazing Spider-Man has the cranes coming together, and it's always like, you know, his dad has been shot, and everyone's like, no, we got this, and he's like, all right, we can do this. And Spider-Man 1, you know, under the bridge. And you just got the people throwing the tomatoes at Green Goblin. It's like, these are just normal people. You know, they can't do anything, but they do it anyway. Or Spider-Man 2, he's like knocked out and the people stand in front of, you know, Dr. Octopus and they're like, we're not letting you take him. I'm like, Oh, yes! I just unplugged my microphone. Hold on. I can't hear a thing. I'm back. I hit here and it just pulled out of my head. But yeah, like I love that, and I didn't expect to see even that in this film towards the end, where I was like, oh, okay, this is like over. This is gonna end like tragically, and then you have the people coming together and gifting their accounts, and she has like it's basically a gamble at the end of the day. Like you said, it's a card game, but it works, and it's really emotional, and it's just like the whole world recognizes this. It is also really scary because like I could see this happening. Like it just it's like it was obviously the title of the episode we put, like, and this is probably like our impending doom. Like we are so quick to put our information on the internet and not question where it's going, and you know, especially like now my phone will send me notifications that I have passwords that are leaked on the dark web, and I'm like, I can't be bothered changing them. Like if you go through the effort to find my password on the dark web, you can have my account. Like it's fine. Like you put in the effort, you deserve it. It's kind of where my head's at. I'm just like, oh, I can't be bothered.
Yeah. Yeah, I had my Discord account stolen a couple years ago.
Oh shit.
For like 2-3 weeks. It took me a bit to get it back. When I got it back, the person that had stolen it, like I had no information on it other than like my name. The person that stole it put like their name, phone number, address, and credit card information on it. So I reported them to the Brazilian police because that's where they were. And I'm like, okay, you stole my account and gave me your information?
That is like the wildest backwards thing I've heard in my entire life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. Too. Obviously, like people, like I feel like the most important commodity these days is information, and I think this film dives into that because you do have like, you know, the president's on here, and these people have like access to nukes and energy and traffic lights and all of this crazy stuff. It's all here, and it does kind of give you a bit of like fear around what that unified like internet, like what it would cause. You know, it'd be dangerous.
Yeah, but I love that, like you said, the community aspect of like everyone coming together. And when the grandmother is like, I need to do something, and she just starts pulling out her phone book and calling all her old friends and calling her grandkids and like their bosses and calling private phone lines that she shouldn't even know the phone number to give everyone pep talks and rally the troops.
I love that. Like it's just the cutest. Like the grandma's like she's like the unsung hero in the film, you know? Like she does such a great job. She's so lovely. It's really heartbreaking that she spends, you know, a decent chunk of the film, I don't mean for this to sound funny, but like dead in the other room, you know? Like she's just there.
Yeah.
But the actual scene where we lose the grandma of like the main character falling asleep and then waking up and then realizing what's going on actually rocked me.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the dog barking and just everyone, the cicadas. I think that's one of the only times that you just hear the cicadas too.
Yeah. Like it's like the screen is black, you got the cicadas, and you just have the dog barking and nothing else. And then it's like just wakes up and it's like something's wrong. And yeah, it rocked me. Like there aren't really many other words for it. Like I was watching it and I was like, this is not fair, Ren. Why are you doing this to me? I thought it was a fun movie about a little bunny rabbit fighting in a VR world. But no, now I want to call my grandma.
Yeah, I don't think there's been a time I've watched this movie that I haven't at least teared up at a lot of the scenes, because there are a lot of scenes that hit really hard.
Yeah, it's like it, and I think it's something that I find animation can do that to me a lot quicker than live action as well. I feel like maybe it's part of being autistic and looking and reading people's faces and going like, is it real or are you faking this? You know, and I feel like that happens to me in films sometimes as well. That I sometimes I can't connect with the performance as much as I can with something that's not real. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it also ties into like part of why I like dubs more is with voice acting, because they're only using their voice to portray the emotions. They put so much more into it than you can do live action without like looking less serious.
Yeah, it's like if you look at a behind the scenes of them doing these dubs, it's going to, um, like it's gonna look silly, you know. And you
Yeah.
even see it, even in like not necessarily just like Japanese animation or an anime or anything like that, but even in like Western animation where you see people in the booths doing wild stuff to try and get that emotion out. That you're right, they can't do in person. You know, like watching Sam Witwer do the crazy voice for Maul when we first find him in Clone Wars, and like the craziness that's going on in him, and it's like, yeah, Maul's like animated like crazy, but if he was sitting there with his face painted in the corner in live action doing that, it would not hit. It wouldn't hit.
Yeah, the like seeing clips of him doing the like old master Maul in Rebels and
Yeah.
like the resigned and like pained voice,
Mhm.
it doesn't work with the live action seeing him do it because it's just not the same.
Yeah, like Maul in the desert screaming out Kenobi at the top of his lungs in Rebels at the end, just falling to his knees. But him in the booth, just like, you know, Kenobi. It's like it wouldn't hit. And so yeah, there is
Yeah.
something that's, you're right. Like I love seeing that in voice acting in particular. And I think also I find that like young actors, I feel like generally they're like better in animation than they are in live action too. Like seeing kids do voice acting in things, you know, like, I know often like adults will portray like kids and stuff in things like this as well. But you know, I was thinking about like Kubo and the Two Strings, or things like The Last Airbender. Like these are kids doing these voices. Like they're not adults playing it. Like I think, you know, at the time, Dante Basco would have been like 17. Like he probably would have been the oldest there, and it's a kid. You know, the kid who played Aang was like 8 or 9 years old playing Aang, and
Yeah.
he's actually so good.
That's actually something I recently did, like my project. I've been editing together the new Gurren Lagann movies with
Yeah.
the old show for fun. And a lot of what I did to one of the movies was just taking the audio from the show and putting it back into the movie because the new dub was made like last year. And so all of the voice actors, they're 15 years older than they were, and they didn't go as over the top and exaggerated as intense as they did in the original dub. And I just prefer the original so much more because of how over the top they were willing to go.
Yeah. So did they like remake the same story later?
Yeah, so the movies are like the same story redone in a condensed format and a way better ending. And they redid the dub, and it's the same lines for the most part, but the delivery is just way more flat and mellow, and like it's one of a weird it's a weird situation where them getting older and better at acting was detrimental to the performance.
Wow, that's really interesting. And I think it's cool too because it's like seeing that they are able to go back and redo something they've done before. They're doing it with the context of what they've done previously, and so they are putting it together as like, this is my version of like a better version of it. I saw a video recently of John Batiste talking about Taylor Swift's re-recording her album.
Yeah.
And I think they played the song for him like Style, and he's sitting there going like, "Oh, this is the new version." Like, what you can tell, he's like, "Yeah, yeah," because like the original one, she's singing from like being in that space, you know, like she's experiencing that right now. And this is like an older, mature person, like having the nostalgia of it. Like I can hear the difference in her voice, and I feel like that would apply to exactly what you're talking about as well.
Yeah, there's it changes that like younger actors are willing to put more intensity and just like exaggerate and go over the top with it, whereas a more experienced actor is going to try and like be a little bit more in character and be
Yeah.
like what is going to work for the recording, what's going to
Mhm.
work for like the performance. And I feel like the younger actors just go harder because of that. The emotions are so much more intense because they're trying their hardest to show as much of that as emotion in their voice as they can.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I know, like, obviously, before you were talking about how Hosoda's made this film like 3 times, right? Have you seen all 3 versions of it? Like
I
Digimon,
have
Bell.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have now. Digimon I've watched so many times.
Mhm.
There was a time in high school where I couldn't sleep because my brain was just like, no, we should watch Digimon, and that I had slow internet, so downloading the Digimon movie
Legally,
took all night.
legally downloading it.
Legally, yes, legally, but the download took all night. So I was up until 6 in the morning waiting, like just watching the download go because my brain insisted that we needed to watch this instead of sleep. And then
Yeah,
I watched it and went to school.
dude.
And his other version, Bell, I hadn't seen until last night, actually.
Okay, yeah. What did you think of that?
It is really good. It's more Beauty and the Beast
Mhm.
for the actual story, but like the setting is very similar to the point that I was kind of spend most of the movie going, like, there was no reason to not just make this a sequel or like a part of the Summer Wars universe, because it starts off with an introduction virtually the same. I think they even used the same voice actress of the introduction to a digital world where your avatar is your new you.
Yeah. And I remember seeing, like, I think that film got a huge standing ovation when it premiered, as well. I can't remember which film festival it was at. I saw it popped up. Since then, I've seen like people kind of like mixed on it. Some people go like it's not all that, and other people going this is insanely cool. Um, yeah, but it is interesting that he goes back to that setting as consistently as he does. I wonder if he'll do it again at some point. Um, but yeah,
Looking at yeah, looking at the movies he's made, uh, there's an interesting like pattern to them because he's made I think like 8 or 9 movies, and all they're 3 movies because he did the Digimon movie and then Summer Wars and Bell, and then he did a time travel movie about a girl who can time travel, and then another time travel movie about a girl who can time travel, and then he did Boy and the Beast, which is about a boy going and living in like the world of spirits and living under with a beast that is train that he wants to train under. And I think he's just going to make that movie for his next one because that seems to be the pattern.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting that like to be able to repeat or remake or refine things from a similar story, like, or just falling in love with that concept enough that you want to just like have it again and again. It is interesting, as you said, like for something like Bell though, to not just make it just part of the same universe. Like I wonder what the thought process from him is to keep them separate.
Yeah, I think there is. I think the key difference that makes it like that is that in Bell, the online world has like a biometric system, so you can't have multiple accounts. It's tied to your real world identity, like
I mean, that just seems
solidly.
like that makes sense for it to be where they go after this. It like
It does. Yeah.
it's like, oh, by the way, I don't know if you guys know, but in early 2010, like everything was stolen by an AI called Love Machine. So now it's biometric.
Yeah. 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 It's very interesting how he keeps going to the same kind of stories,
Yeah.
and that all of his movies share the same theme of being about like something supernatural or science fiction, like something unrealistic and crazy, but then the stories themselves are very grounded slice of life in like could happen in reality.
Yeah. Yeah. Like as we said, it's really easy to be focused on the parts of this film that are like the main story, which is all of like the VR stuff that's happening. But there is a very real story about a family that's happening in the real world at the same time. Like they're
Yes.
trying to come together, you know, and they all want what's best for themselves and for each other. There's the letter from the grandma that comes out and like, hey, don't be so extra. It's okay. Have a celebration. Like be sad and then just like get a couple of people around that we love and just have a nice time together for me. And it's just like, okay. It's like a
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, the
it is a
letter
story a
always
bit of
like,
like grief, you know, like it's and maybe people trying to handle it in their own way. As you said, like the cousin who also the uncle who wants grandma's approval and going and doing
yeah,
this big thing for her. And it's like I know she's gonna go soon. I just want I know that I've been like a disgrace. I just want you to understand that like I did something for us before you go. It's heartbreaking.
yeah, yeah. The letter. I've never been able to like solidly figure out if she wrote that before he came back or if she wrote that like the night before after he left,
Yeah.
because it completely changes the context of like, did she write that before and then she was just playing up the disappointed grandma because that's what he expected, or did she write that after because she regretted playing up the disappointed grandma and like she wanted him to stay?
Yeah. Like yeah, I think that like my interpretation of it was that it had been around for a while and
Yeah,
that those were just the emotions that came up for her in the moment. But I actually hadn't considered that it could have been like that as well. So that's really interesting. That she could have either maybe she even had a letter and she rewrote the letter knowing that something was coming soon. But um yeah, like I think that it's so funny that it starts with these kids in the online universe, like they're coding and building stuff or whatever, and then just this girl shows up and is like, I need one of you to be my pretend boyfriend.
yeah. And then the immediate overwhelming of like just throwing all of the information about her massive family at him and him trying and completely failing to keep track of any of it.
Yeah, and her giving him the backstory, like this is your backstory, and then being like, he is a fraud. He's a fraud. And speaking of frauds, Pep is in chat saying Ren is a fake guest. So I see you. I see you, Pep. Not the kind of pep talk I expected today, but alas, here we are.
Yeah.
No, but it's what were you saying? Like, yeah, it's just so wild that he's like kind of thrust into this world, and it is kind of like indicative of him being like thrust into the virtual world as well of all this stuff, and it's very overwhelming. So I feel like it's crazy that I'm realizing this now as I'm thinking about it, that like he finds it so easy to fit in that side of things, which is really overwhelming. But in like the real world, which is arguably like less so, there's less people, there's less stuff going on. It's hard to fit in there.
Yeah, I one of the things I found out when I was just looking up this film the other day is that Mamoru Hasoda was largely inspired for this film from when he met his fiance's family and how overwhelmed it was to meet them.
Yeah.
And so like he did an amazing job of capturing the overwhelming feeling of meeting a huge family like that for the first time, and also all the feelings and like everything about a big family get together like that.
Yeah, I think it's wild too. Like it's something that I've experienced as well. Like I'm sure most people have, like if we've been in a relationship with someone and gone and met their family, like generally it is this kind of like, I want everyone to like me. I want to feel like I fit in, and it can be hard, and like I've been there before where I've gone to visit a partner's family and been there and been like, oh, like there's a lot here. Like there's a grandma and a grandpa and like all these people. And like it's wild out here. I don't know how this is gonna go. Whoosh said in chat as well, it's a very anime trope opening, I believe, around like the, come be my fake boyfriend and it's gonna be fine. And I love those kinds of tropes in general. Like I was trying to figure out like when I was putting my cinema a la carte together, I was like, what direction am I gonna go with this? Could I find other films about like, fake girlfriends or fake boyfriends and how that ties in? And I was like, you know what? I don't think that I want to recommend Ryan Reynolds and Sandra Bullock's The Proposal after this. That just doesn't feel like the right direction to go. So I ended up going in a different direction with my cinema a la carte. But yeah, I find that really funny, that trope,
Yeah, I really like that that's the direction it goes. And then they make it, I think it was rock, paper, scissors was the decider for which one of them went.
Yeah.
And how the friend that stayed to like keep working, he's just cool with it. He immediately goes from like, oh, that sucks, I couldn't be the fake boyfriend, but now I'm your wingman.
That's what you need from that's a real best friend right there. Like, you know what? I want you to succeed. Um, that's everything you need from them. And yeah, like there are like one of the characters we haven't spoken about like at all is the kid. What's the kid's name? Um,
Kazuma?
yeah, Kazuma. Like he is so cool,
Yes.
and like how his story evolves within the film. Like, sorry, you are who? You are what? What is happening right now? I thought he's really interesting.
Yeah, I love the reveal that like the reason he's so good at martial arts is because he's been training with his uncle, and it's the chubby uncle that runs a fishing company, like the oldest, most dad uncle in the group.
Yep. Yeah.
And just my favorite moment with Kazuma is just that part where Kenji says to like put out a challenge to Love Machine. King Kazuma 2.0 is ready to go this time, this date. And he's like, why are you saying that? And Kazuma just goes, I'm saying it because I'm King Kazuma. And the disbelief, and then, oh my God, you are?
Yeah. I think it's really interesting too how like to a certain extent they don't set up the like rules in this film like in the virtual world that much, and it is a little confusing sometimes watching it going like he's just typing and then this is what we're seeing on it. Like what is he doing? Like is he typing like code? It's like, you know, if he was, you know, keyboard and mousing and being like, okay, this is his character doing stuff, but it's a little confusing seeing it go back and forth like that where it's like what actually is the connection between what he's doing on the outside world and what's happening on the inside world? You know, like he's getting knocked to the wall, then he's sitting there being like, can't do it. And it's like, that's not how games work.
That's one of my favorite things in this movie is just like, I actually want to edit together some funny clips to like portray what it looks like from the outside. Because there's like the part towards the end where his uncle's avatar grabs his arm and like throws him towards Love Machine, and there's that go get him Kazuma sensei, and then you like picture what's actually happening, and his uncle's on his DS sitting next to him, and they're like the screaming is unnecessary, they're 2 feet away.
Yeah, like literally just be turning and being like sensei. It's like, yeah, it's funny that it's one of those things where it's like usually in a film I go, I want you to set up your rules and I want you to stick to your rules, and then I can kind of stay in here. And here, it's like it doesn't quite do that. So for like argument's sake, it could be something that I'd like knock the film for and be like, you know, like you could have done more there, but like I was kind of wholly invested the whole time anyway, so it didn't like bug me as it usually would. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the like
the Guardians are called John Lennon and Yoko Ono. Like,
yes,
yeah,
so. I feel like a lot of the scenes in Oz are kind of just like portrayals of how that scenario would feel rather than what's actually going on. Because like,
yeah, absolutely,
the ending with the giant monster, and then there's Natsuki and the epic scenes with like her dress transforming and the cards shattering behind her, and then you see like at the end her phone screen, and it's just like her little chibi avatar sitting there, and it's just bouncing up and down a PNG.
Yeah.
Or like you see the uncle screen when they're like having the epic battle outside of the like dome that they're trapping Love Machine in, and then they're just playing like a DS game where it's just like them going like this on a screen in 2D space.
Yeah. It's like I imagine it like if it were like a Pokemon battle, and he's literally just sitting there being like, all right, use agility. It's like I always thought that was funny, like watching, again, like being a Pokemon fan growing up and playing the games of being like, donk, tackle, donk, quick attack, donk, fire blast, and it's just like, I always would have loved to see things feel a bit more like how it felt to watch big fights and like the anime. Like I always think back to, I was talking about this with someone the other day. We were talking about like Master Quest in Pokemon. I was talking with Johnny, and we're talking about like Blastoise versus Charizard at the end of Master Quest in Pokemon when they're at the Johto League, and you know it's like this whole build up for years of like Gary versus Ash and Charizard versus Blastoise and who's gonna win, because like Blastoise has the advantage, and if we were playing Pokemon Stadium, it would not go like this.
Yeah.
It wouldn't go like that. It just can't happen, you know? Yeah, there's something about it that just hits different, you know? And I think that you're right. I feel like Pokemon is as well, so that similar sense where it probably is portrayed as the game as how we're experiencing it in the real world, and how it feels is that interpretation. So I think it's a really cool way to view it, because I think if you try and think about it too much, your brain is probably gonna break trying to go, wait, he just typed a bunch of random letters, and when his character was like hurting and needed to get up, he just like mashed the buttons harder, you know, for him to like he's gotta move, mash more, all right, he's moving more. It's like that, not how games work.
Yeah. But yeah, I also love that, like, for the fighting scenes, because it's like a crazy fighting game system, but then it's just like martial arts with like really low key moves. Like there's no energy blasts. Like there's people getting sent flying in the second fight, but it's also still just like kicks and punches.
Yeah, and it's like in this world, like you could do a lot more than that, but you don't. And like it's still really cool. But yeah, I did think it was really interesting that this kid has learned jujitsu or whatever in like real life, and then he goes in game and can type and make it's like when the main character's looking at him and looking at Kazuma and being like, it's like watching King Kazuma like in person. It's like, how is it like that? Like it's a kid in the backyard practicing his real moves so that he can type them into the computer and fight the bat. Like, this doesn't make sense, but it's cool. I love it. Rush also said in chat, Ash beat Onyx with the Pikachu by spraying water on it. The anime does not follow the game rules. Which is, like pretty much it. It's always the way with like games versus real life or versus anime or animation or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I also love like when they are trying to track down Love Machine's like admin logs, and then they show it as like footprints all over the place through the wall, and it's like, okay, but they're actually looking at like a list of timestamps. Yeah.
It's like I watched recently a film that was recommended by a friend of the channel, Tate, the facts guy, but he recommended a film called The Remarkable Life of Evelyn. Have you heard of it?
Maybe. That sounds familiar.
It's come out on Netflix now, but it's a documentary about a kid who had like a muscular degenerative disorder.
Yes, I watched this the other night, a couple weeks ago. It made me cry.
The movie? You watched the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, it's beautiful, but I love how they talk about how they recreated things that happened in-game because they just had all of it saved. They had the timestamps and the chats and the location data and the avatars, and they just exported all of that out, put it into Unreal Engine, and animated what was actually happening in-game, effectively like one-to-one.
Yeah, I saw that they had like almost finished the documentary, and then they went to Blizzard and asked them like, hey, we're making this, like this is what we've got, can we use your footage? And Blizzard not only said yes to the footage, but like sent them the assets to make better cinematics of everything.
Yeah, it's insane. And to your point, that's probably exactly what was happening here. They were just looking at those little like, all right, where is he? Like there's the location data, yep, and their timestamp, and you know what was happening there, you know what was the like each click, what happened when they did those clicks. And yeah, but the way it's portrayed is like that. And at the same time, like Love Machine just like chilling with a huge key next to like the password, and every time the main character unlocks the password, he's just like locked. And I was like, bro,
yeah,
like it is actually like, yeah, I think somewhat an accurate portrayal of how we would envision what's happening in that moment, like how we would make sense of it, because you kind of can't if you're just going based on what's happening on the outside story.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think it would be an interesting experiment to watch this movie without any of the scenes inside and just like watch it from the perspective of the characters, just like, and you're like, what's happening here? What's going on? And then be like, oh, he got me. Like it'd be interesting. I set up my theater room to like I was saying before, like I put a HDMI cable through the wall.
Yeah.
And so I was able to use my computer to link to the LED lights that I have behind the TV. And so yesterday when I was watching the film and I had all the lights switched off, but the LED lights going, those final fights actually casting colors all through my house. I was like, yeah. Oh yeah. This is my shit right here. It was awesome.
Oh.
I need more stuff like that. But the film itself is like, it's really, really cool. It's one of my like favorites that I've got to check out because again, it comes down to the things we experience on the podcast is going to people, hey, like let's watch a movie. What do you want us to watch? And like, while we do have space for the like classics, you know, we've done a bunch of Hitchcock films this year. We've done like Shawshank Redemption with Pep and stuff. So we've got like the ones that you would expect to have on a film podcast. And then we have, you know, things like Reign of Fire from David and Jujutsu Kaisen and this one from you. And these are the ones that kind of like stand out and feel almost like more special in that sense. Because it's like, you're not going to find this film in IMDb's top 100, but you're going to find it in like Ren's top 5. And some like it makes it feel more like special, more personal. That it's like, hey, like I want to share this with you because of what it means to me, not because of what it means to the world. You know?
Yeah.
And I loved that about watching this film.
Actually, speaking of top 5s, or in my case, top 3s, I frustrated one of my chat groups so much with my top 3 anime because it's a grid of 25. Organized by the center is my number 1, and then cascading out is like the 2 spaces from the center are my ties for second slot, and the outer corners are like my, so it's like my number 1, and then my 12 that are tied for second, and my 12 that are tied for third.
That, I mean, I think it's a really cool way to do it as well, because I find that these days, like I struggle, like I know kind of what my favorite films are, but I couldn't tell you which one's my favorite because it depends what's happening at the time. You know, like among my favorite films are like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and like Sing Street. And I'm like, Sing Street kind of always hits nice, and La La Land is good when I feel like a bit of like melancholy kind of like, or melancholy, sorry, like taking over, you know? And I'm like, I want to feel something. So I have like different films for different kinds. So it is hard for me to put together like just like a top 5. It doesn't kind of work the way that it probably does for like the average person. I think it's different for it. So I think it's a really cool way to do it. Like, fuck your friends. Like, I wouldn't be frustrated. I would be like, yeah, Ren, this is sick. I love this.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like, do you have any other kind of like key thoughts that come up about this film or things that you want to talk about before we move into cinema a la carte?
I think we've covered most of it. I just love this film. I think one of my, like, the scenes that I always remember, like, flawlessly, like I can replay it in my head at any time, is when Wabisuke, the uncle, comes back after learning that Granny died, and like the car flipping through the yard and crashing into the forklift, and then he gets out and the first thing out of his mouth is, "Where is she? I need to see her."
Yeah. And she's just, as we said, just like sitting there. Also, there's that point where like, oh, what's going on with the supercomputer? Why isn't it working? It's overflowing. Like it's overheating. Like what happened to all the ice in here? And I was like, yeah, I guess it just like it melted because like the computer's running really hot. It's like, no, the creepy cousin just moved it. He just moved it to the other room.
Didn't question why it was there or what they were doing.
Yeah, it was just like, oh yeah, this makes sense. I'm gonna go keep grandma cold. Him as a cop is fucking hilarious too. There are so many great moments in the film, and it's like funny that like now that we're looking like wrapping up here, and I've got other things that just like pop up, and I'm thinking about like the traffic jam and then being stuck, and then you know she's coming up and going, no, turn around, like this goes on forever, like get out of here. And it is also wild that it's kind of like I know it's key to the story, but the fact that they're like, oh yeah, he sold this to the American military and they just like set it free in here for like shits and giggles is a bit like, fuck you, America. I think that's really funny.
Yeah, immediate international incident and nuclear threat.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, I can see how we got here. I could see it, you know, like, yeah, but it was a really, really cool movie, a really dope recommendation. So thank you so much for sharing it. Yeah, like I loved it. I still have to write my
Yeah.
review on it for Letterboxd, but yeah, I feel like I could rate this like pretty highly. Like it's got really great visuals and really cool characters. It's got a lot of stuff going on in it, but I feel like each item individually is really like it does a lot with all the things it's trying to work with. Yeah, those kind of family stories, and again, the art style is great. The music is fantastic, and of course, the animation's insane. Whoosh
Yeah.
actually sent in chat a question for you as well, Ren, just asking around your thoughts on Bell or Mamoru's other works, which we did speak about a little bit earlier. But if you want to do a quick breakdown,
Oh yeah, I love all of his movies. Like, uh, I just love all of them. They are every single one is fantastic. Every single one has the same like outlandish setting but grounded story,
yeah,
and they all have like a very different theme to them.
we were talking
Usually a
about
really
Wolf Children
lighthearted
before
theme
as
that
well.
hits.
That's
Yeah, Wolf Children is a really intense one because the whole theme is about like your children growing up and changing and branching out and becoming their own people.
mm,
And it is just it's another movie that like every time you think you're like, oh, I see where this is going, it shifts direction and it's like, oh no, it's going here. Oh, this is completely different. Oh, where is this emotion? Where is all these
mm.
heavy duty emotions coming from?
And it seems like that's consistent with his storytelling in general, because this is very similar. Like again, it does kind of build up like it's just going to be like a cheeky little rom com, and then it's like, no, no, the world is ending, and then it's like, no, no,
Yeah.
it is a cheeky little rom com, and then the grandma's like, hey, I knew the whole time she's talking shit. Like you're not her real boyfriend, but like you could be. You're like you're good for her. Don't like just because it's a joke doesn't mean it has to like stay a joke, and you're just like, Granny.
Yeah, and I think the theme of self-acceptance is the primary theme of every single one of his stories,
Mhm.
which he is really good at doing.
Yeah. I mean, like when you make that many films that have those sorts of themes consistently, you'd hope that like you'd start to lock in and make sense of it. And we should also say that the American AI thing is very reminiscent of Ghost in the Shell, which I've only seen the fantastic Scarlett Johansson version of that story, which 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I have not. I watched a bit of Ghost in the Shell a long time ago. I need to rewatch that.
Yeah. Well, like you're wearing the Cowboy Bebop shirt, and I haven't finished that either. Like I'm like 4 or 5 episodes into it, and I know it's not a long series, and I know it's great. And where I was up to, there was so many anime shows that I watched a few episodes in. I'm like, this is awesome, and then I started the next one, and I was like, this is awesome, and I started the next one. So I have like so much stuff that's unfinished. But I got my friend's Crunchyroll login, so yeah, I'm gonna try and
Nice.
smash Jujutsu Kaisen. I need to go and finish the last 2 parts of season 4 of Attack on Titan and finish that off and see how that ended. Is it actually isn't finished? Isn't there like a movie or something coming out as well
Uh, for what?
for
For
Attack on
Jujutsu
Titan?
Kaisen, or
Attack on Titan.
I think it's finished. I'm not sure. I've fallen behind on that one.
Gotcha. Could be finished. I did see that Demon Slayer has like 3 movies coming out for the next arc, because we're in like the last 2 arcs. But yeah. But yeah, this was a awesome recommendation. I had a great time with this film. Thank you so much for sharing it. We were saying before when Kay was watching it earlier this week, he had the shocking realization that he actually had seen the movie before. That he'd had this thing with his friends where they basically were like, oh, we're all gonna like force each other to watch like one movie, and one of his friends made him watch this, and so he was like, oh, I've seen this, I like this a lot. So that was really cool as well. It's wild that you just like kind of forget, experiencing something. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but like, thank you, it was awesome, and always good to like chat about things that like matter to people a lot. Like that's my favorite thing about what we do here. Yeah, but any final thoughts before we move into Cinema a la carte?
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything I can think of right now.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. Well, look, if other things come up, bring them up. We still got a few minutes to go. So, but for the listeners, we always love to wrap up with a little game of cinema a la carte. And as a reminder, this is where we get to show you the best way to experience this film through the metaphor of food. Now, we've each prepared a menu of our own with this week's film as the main course, along with an entree or an appetizer to start, a paired wine, and then a dessert to complete your journey. So you get to decide which set menu you love the most. And be sure to let us know in the comments. Now, I'm going to kick us off here. I was trying to think of a name for this set menu, which I was struggling with a little bit, because I look at it and I go, I see the theme, but it's hard, you know? And I feel like maybe the title would be like, it's not real, it's going to be okay, you know?
Yeah.
So let's roll with that. So we start with Spike Jonze's Her with what's his name? Oh my god, Joaquin Phoenix, and Scarlett Johansson as well. Like, I thought this is a really great place to start because it's kind of wholesome, I suppose. It does have its moments of like deep emotional sadness, but they are coming from a place of like joy and love. So I really love that movie. It's one of my favorites. It's visually stunning as well. It's set in this universe where things don't really make that much sense or don't fit with how we kind of do things here. But yeah, it's beautiful. We go into our main, which is Summer Wars, and we're going to pair that with a wine of Tron Legacy. I got to rewatch this in IMAX earlier this year. I'm not sure. I can't remember if it was IMAX. It was like IMAX 3D. We went and watched it. Me and Whoosh in chat, and it was cool, man. Like, the film is ahead of its time. Like, it's not sitting there being like, this is one of the greatest films I've like ever seen. But I'm like, this had something, you know. They were working with some really cool stuff. Yeah, like, and it has so many moments in it that were also very reminiscent of like The Last Jedi and like old man Luke. And I was like, I'll fuck with that, man. So like, yeah, I love the movie. It's so cool. And for dessert, we go into the original Matrix. I think that's a really like kind of fun way to end it. We are still in like, you know, it's not real, but like it's kind of real. And at the same time, you know, you get this kind of like end of the world. You have AI being the bad guys, and yeah, like I think that it kind of just fits as similar in themes to all of this. Yeah, it was IMAX 3D that we watched Tron Legacy. But yeah, those are my picks.
Nice.
So for our appetizer, we have Her. For our main, we have Summer Wars paired with a wine of Tron Legacy. And then for dessert, The Matrix. And yeah, we said that Tron Legacy was, amazing. But key to that is incredible soundtrack in the IMAX theater with like the Dolby sound. It just, yeah, elite. What about for you, Ren? What are your picks for Cinema a la carte?
I would honestly just go with a Mamoru Hasoda menu, because his movies pair well with each other. For an appetizer, I would do Boy and the Beast, because it's not Boy and the Beast, Wolf Children first, because it is the heaviest and you will need all of the lighthearted ones to counteract that. So a nice heavy appetizer followed by some light main dishes. And then Summer Wars as the main, paired with a wine of Bell, because you have two aspects of exploring a similar theme.
Yeah.
And for dessert, I would do The Boy and the Beast, because it is one of his most unique movies. It's not like comparable to the rest of like this is the same story as this, just told differently. It's actually its own story. And it is just a good, lighthearted way to wrap up a watch list of his stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, no, really great picks. And like for shits and giggles earlier today, I asked ChatGPT what it would do. I explained what Cinema a la carte was, and then I asked it to give me a Cinema a la carte, and it said, if Summer Wars were the main dish, the perfect meal experience would involve carefully chosen films to complement his themes, tone, and storytelling styles. Here's how I'd structure the meal. And I asked it what it would call the set menu. And it said, I would call the set menu Virtual Realities and Heartfelt Bonds. The title captures the essence of the meal, a blend of technology, digital world, and the emotional depth of human connections. Each film in the menu explores these themes, weaving together moments of fantasy, introspection, ultimately celebrating the strength of family and personal growth. So, ChatGPT's choices for cinema a la carte were Appetizer, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, directed by Mamoru Hasoda, the same director of Summer Wars. The Girl Who Leapt Through Time shares the director's thematic exploration of youth, personal growth, and the impact of choices. The film also has a similar blend of emotional depth and fantasy elements, providing a lighter, more introspective start to the meal before delving into the complexities of Summer Wars. It's a perfect appetizer to set the stage for understanding Hosoda's approach to the intersection of ordinary lives and extraordinary events. Then you have Summer Wars as the main. The paired wine is the digital world. So this wine represents Paprika, 2006, directed by Satoshi Kon. Just as a wine adds complexity to a meal, Paprika adds complexity to the exploration of virtual realities, dreams, and technology. Its rich visual style and psychological depth make it a perfect pairing for Summer Wars, as both explore the blurred boundaries between the real and the virtual and the consequences of our digital lives. Thought-provoking and mind-bending experience that complements the high stakes in digital warfare. And then for dessert, Wolf Children. So Wolf Children, another film by Mamoru Hasoda, serves as a bittersweet and emotionally fulfilling conclusion. In essence, the meal reflects a journey through technological worlds, personal growth, family bonds, and the beauty of both fantasy and reality, all expertly paired for a well-rounded cinematic experience. ChatGPT was on one. It was really, really cool. But yeah, those are our cinema a la carte, guys. Let us know whose choices you like most, mine, Ren's, or ChatGPT's. You can let us know in the comments. Thanks again to everyone for joining us today. I'm Naf. You can find me at Seen by Naf via links in the description across all of our like socials. Still on second thought in some places as well, but you know, content creation. It is what it is. And yeah, for our guest, Ren, thank you so much for joining me today. Like, do you want to let the people know where they can find you and what they can expect to find when they do?
Yeah, I am Sleepy Savior on every platform I'm on. I'm kind of interim on what direction my content's going to go, but I like talking about nerdy things, mainly anime and video games.
Yeah. It's vibes is what it is.
Yes.
You join for the vibes and you stay for them as well. So yeah, it's a great place to be. Guys, definitely give Ren a follow and yeah, check them out across everywhere you can find them. But yeah, as a reminder, you can find all the links to our individual pages in the description below, and there's even a Google form you can fill out if there's a specific creator or film that you'd love to see on the podcast. And you can also find one with the films on Instagram, TikTok, or your favorite podcasting platforms. But for now, as promised, you can feast your eyes on the next film on the weekly watch list, and we'll catch you guys next week. See you later.
Oh, that is quite lovely. That is... Oh! Hello, everyone! I apologize for not being there in person today, but nonetheless, it is good to see you all. And I am glad that I can share with you, next to this nice and authentic fire, that we are going to be covering Greta Gerwig's Little Women next week. Should make a nice fall treat to treat ourselves to some beauty and some trauma. So, do delight in seeing myself host with Naf, and we will be discussing one of my favorite films. Well, I hope you have a wonderful holiday for those who celebrate, and for those who don't, good luck.